Hello everyone, welcome to my channel Similarity. In this video, I will teach you another method to create mask in Houdini, and this is the second video of our masking series. So if you haven't watched the first one, please do that. On that video, I have showed how we can generate mask using a geometry. And in this video, I will teach you a different method to create mask in Houdini. And the node that we are going to use is mask along geometry node. Okay, so let's just jump right into it. So the first thing that we need is a grid here. Also, let me change the row count to 11 and column count to 11 so that we have this, 1 by 1 unit squares here. So the length of, this square is 1 unit by 1 unit. And don't worry, you'll understand why I'm doing this once you see this whole thing in action. Okay. So now let's plug our node here. Mask along geometry. Also, let me uncheck this so that you don't get confused by all these options here. Okay, so the core functionality of this node is basically this node gives us the length of the shortest path from start points to other points in the geometry. Let me repeat it again. This node gives us the length of the shortest path from start point to other point in the geometry. You can have multiple start points also. So okay, so that's how this node works. Basically, this node gives us the length of the shortest path. Okay, so now let's say this is our start point here. This corner point is a start point, and we have to reach this point here. Okay, so if we follow along the edges only, then how we can reach here? We can go something like this and then like this. So then this node will gives us the length of this path that we have taken. Now you will be thinking like we can also go something like this also. Yeah, that's right. We can go something like this also. So in that case, this node will gives us the length of this path that we have taken. Okay, that we have taken along the surface. Okay, so this is the core functionality of this node. Now let's see how this node actually works and all the options in this node. Okay. So the first important option that we have here is this start points. Okay, so we can select multiple start points if you want, but for the sake of this tutorial, so that you can understand it better, we will select only single point. Okay, so let's select this corner point here. So this point 120 is our start point. Okay, now you can see that we have this distance metric option here. Basically, these are different algorithms that Houdini uses to calculate the distance. Okay, so the first algorithm that we have here is edge. Okay, now if we set the algorithm to edge or the distance metric to edge, then we can only go along the edges. Okay, or you can say that we can only follow the edges to reach a particular point, right? So that's what this distance metric edge do. Now let's check our attribute here, dist attribute. Basically, dist attribute contains the length of that path. Okay, this dist attribute stores the value of the length of that path that we have taken to reach a particular point from the start point. Okay, so you can also see here. Okay, so this is you see these numbers here. Basically, these are the value of dist attribute for each of these points. Okay, so this is a start point here. Point number 0 is a start point, and the farther the point is, the higher the value, the higher the dist attribute value is. Okay, so let's say this point here. If you have to reach this point, and we can only follow along the edges because we have also set the distance metric to edge here. So how we can go? We can go something like this and then like this. So that's why the value of this attribute is 3 here, because two units here and 1 unit here. Okay, that's why the dist attribute value of 3 is here for this point. Similarly, you can see for this last point here, how we can go there. We can go something like this, 10 units here and then 10 units here. That's why the value of this attribute for this point is 20. Okay. Basically, this attribute stores the value of the length of the path. Okay. So this is for the distance metric distance metric when we set the distance metric to h. Now let's set this to distance, and as you have guessed, if we set the distance metric to surface, then we can also use the surface as well as the edges to reach a particular point. Let me repeat it again. When we set the distance metric to surface, then we can use both the edges and the surface to reach a particular point. Now let's say if I have to reach this point here, then the shortest path that we can take is like this straight line. So now let's calculate the distance here. Let's open up Photoshop. So see, this is our start point, and this is second point, this third point, and this is the point we want to reach, right? So this will be the shortest path that we can take. As you can see here, see, this is the shortest path. Sorry, this is shortest path that we can take. And this length here is 2 units, and this length here is 1 unit. Okay. So this length here is 2 unit, and this here is 1 unit. So if you know, in high school mathematics, we have learned about Pythagoras theorem. So according to that theorem, the length of this path will be square 2 square plus 1 square, that is square root of 5. And let's see what the square root of 5 is. See, 2.23606 something. Okay. And see here, 2.23606. Okay. So that's how the distance is calculated. Just remember, if we set the distance metric to surface, then we can use both the edges as well as the surface to reach a point. Okay. Okay, so the next algorithm that we have here is heat geodesic. Basically, heat geodesic uses the method of heat diffusion to calculate the value of dist attribute. Okay. So basically how it works is, you can think of it like, let's say we have a very hot pin. Okay. A very hot pin made of steel or something, and we pin that pin at this start point. Then the heat from that pin will start diffusing all over the surface of this grid. Okay. So, and the points which are very far away will have a low temperature, and the point which are very near to the pin will have a high temperature. And then based on the difference in the temperature of those points and the direction in which the heat is flowing, Houdini internally uses multiple sets of equations to calculate the value of dist attribute. Also, I can show you something here. See these. First, let me tell you about this diagram here, this rabbit diagram. See, this is our start point. Okay. And the heat is diffusing from this point all over the surface. Now let's say if we have a point here at this point, and we want to calculate the value of dist attribute for this point. So as you can see, the heat is diffusing from this point all over the surface, and eventually it will reach at this point. And the difference in temperature for this point and this point is, there's different temperature, right? This point is cooler and this point is hotter. And there's direction also in which the heat is flowing, or you can say the heat is reaching at this point. So based on all these values, the direction and the temperature, the Houdini internally uses these 3 different equations to get the value of dist attribute. See, you don't need to get very technical about this. All you need to understand that basically Houdini calculates the value of the length of the shortest path based on these 3 algorithms. We don't need to get very in depth about this heat geodesic method. It's just a different algorithm that Houdini uses to calculate the value of dist attribute. Okay, but still, if you want to know more about this, I will put a link in the description, and then you can study there. Okay. So Sorry. So this is our dist attribute, and the next attribute that we have is mask. So basically, mask is inverse of distance, and its range is claimed from 0 to 1. Let me repeat it again. Mask is inverse of distance, and its range is claimed from 0 to 1. Okay. Also, let me show you one thing. You can see here, this is our dist attribute, right? It's black inside, white outside. And this is your mask. It's black outside and white inside. So you can already see mask is inverse of distance. Okay. Also, its range is from 0 to 1. You can see the minimum value is 0 and max value is 1. Okay. Okay, so this is our mask attribute. Also, this we have this radius parameter here. So basically, this radius parameter controls the fall off of the marks. Okay, so if I change this to something like this, you can see the fall off is changing for the mask, right? And if we set the radius parameter to max distance, then what will happen? Basically, the fall off will go all the way to the last point, right? Or you can say the max distance value. If you know, if you're thinking in terms of mathematics, in terms of numbers. Let me show you this in Photoshop. If you set the radius attribute to maximum distance, then what will happen basically? So if I set the radius attribute to max distance, then in that case, basically this is our mask attribute. It takes dist attribute as an input. So if the dist attribute goes from 0 to 20, then it basically takes the value 20 to 0, because as you know, mask is inverse of distance, and then outputs it in the range of 0 to 1, because mask is clamped to this range. Okay, so that is what is happening if we set the radius attribute to max distance. But in case of parameter, we can basically set the input value that this mask attribute takes based on our requirement. Like we can set it manually like this, right? So this is what the use of this radius attribute value here is. But I think leaving it to parameter is better, because we can manually control it instead of setting this to max distance. Also, we have this remap attribute here, which we can use to change this gradient here. We can create something like this. It totally based on our requirement and on the creativity that we are going for. We can create a pattern like this along the gradient of this mask. Okay, so this is it, I think, for this mask from geometry node, and these are all the important parameters for this node. Also, if you don't understand something, please ask me in the comment section. I will try my best to answer those questions. And if you like my video, please do subscribe my channel. I feel really motivated and confidence when you do that to create future videos. And thanks for watching my video. See you in the next video. Bye.